will hurt you for this.
I am the sword in the darkness.
Lion doesn't concern himself with the opinions of the sheep.
Let me give you some advice, bastard.
Chaos isn't a pit. Chaos is a ladder.
Behold, the traitor dragon Meleys, slain by King Aegon!
Our terms are simple. Bend the knee to me, or your house burns.
Daemon, you were made to wear a crown.
The king does not lack for heirs.
So you cast me aside?
We have given the war to the dragons. Will you preside over it?
There is more than one way to fight a war.
What we must do now is terrible.
What is up, everybody? Jeremy Icenfire here, and welcome to the channel. The highly anticipated episode 4 is in the books, and the Battle of Rooks Rest turned out to be a huge spectacle and certainly did not disappoint. And now, with episode 5 approaching, it looks like we are going to be dealing with the aftermath of the battle and how these events are going to shape the future of House of the Dragon. The episode 5 trailer starts off with a very famous scene from Fire and Blood, as we see the severed head of the dragon Meleys being paraded around the streets of King's Landing on a cart. And I'm looking forward to seeing how this affects the population of King's Landing on the show compared to in the books. In Fire and Blood, after the severed head of Meleys is paraded around, a good deal of the population of King's Landing begin abandoning the city. So much to the point that Queen Alicent has to eventually end up ordering the gates closed to prevent more people from leaving. Which of course only begins to turn the population of King's Landing against the Greens that much more. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how these events play out on the show, and if the severed head of Meleys could potentially end up being one of the reasons that we end up seeing a small riot break out in King's Landing later on in the season. But up next we see the soldiers of King Aegon delivering his mangled body to the Red Keep. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what kind of injuries Aegon sustained during the battle. In Fire and Blood, it is famously stated that Aegon's armor had been fused to his skin due to the severity of his burns. And seeing as they are carrying him around in a wooden crate, I wonder if indeed the armor might be fused to his skin in the show as well. But next we hear Rhaenyra stating that they cannot challenge King's Landing without the strength of the Riverlands, as we get a beautiful shot of Daemon atop Caraxes, as he appears to be addressing some soldiers from House Bracken, stating that they could either bend the knee to him or burn, which is about as Targaryen a line as I have ever heard. And I really love the shots of Daemon and Caraxes in this trailer. The Bloodworm looks absolutely phenomenal as usual. But next we get a shot of Daemon at Harrenhal seemingly doing some renovations to the ruined castle, as we see Daemon appear to have another one of his hallucinations that he has been having since arriving, with this one stating, "Daemon, you were meant to wear a crown." So it seems like Daemon is still going to be contending with some of the misdeeds of his past as he deals with some of the guilt that he has been carrying around with him, which in this case is most likely the throne of his brother that he coveted once upon a time. And I'm really enjoying the Harrenhal scenes in Season 2 so far. In the original Game of Thrones series, we saw Harrenhal a great deal, but never did they quite depict it as spooky and cursed as it potentially is. So I really appreciate the fact that House of the Dragon is leaning heavily into the curse of Harrenhal. And I really enjoyed the explanation that Alice Rivers gave in Episode 4 as to the origin of the curse of Harrenhal, and how it was potentially built upon a felled grove of weirwood trees. And if that rumor does turn out to be true, it could potentially explain why Harrenhal is so creepy in the first place. The old gods at the end of the day have been known to be vengeful at times, and felling an entire grove of weirwood trees would definitely be the type of thing to invoke their ire. But next we get a shot of the Greens meeting in the small council chamber, in what sounds to be them discussing the potential succession of the throne. Now that King Aegon is most likely severely incapacitated due to his injuries, someone else will have to now step up in terms of governing the realm, which of course puts Aemond the most likely candidate, even more so after the events of Blood and Cheese and Aegon losing his male heir. So I'm really looking forward to seeing exactly how Aemond handles this newfound responsibility, especially considering he definitely views himself as the more worthy of the two brothers to be king. But up next we get a very interesting shot of Vermax and Jace arriving at the twins. So it should be pretty interesting to see how Jace handles treating with House Frey, especially considering how historically stubborn that house is. But next we get an interesting scene of Aemond alone staring at the Iron Throne. most likely contemplating his newfound position. In Fire and Blood, Aemond never refers to himself as king or your grace, but he does take up the iron and ruby crown of Aegon the Conqueror, and was even heard to have said that the crown looked better on him than it ever did on his brother. Followed by some very interesting dialogue from Mysaria, stating how the people remember that there was peace when King Viserys was alive. And the relationship between Mysaria and Rhaenyra has been one that's been pretty interesting to see unfold. In Fire and Blood, Mysaria ends up becoming one of Rhaenyra's most closely trusted confidants, and it looks like they could potentially be heading in a similar direction on the show, as we also hear Mysaria state to Rhaenyra that there is more than one way to fight a war. And I get the feeling this could potentially lead to the Blacks starting to pump out their own form of propaganda, in what is most likely an attempt to further drive a wedge between the Greens and the people of King's Landing, much like the Greens did early in Season 2, spreading the disinformation that Rhaenyra ordered the death of young Jaehaerys. After all, war is waged on many different fronts and is not solely secluded to the battlefield. But finally, the trailer ends on a line of dialogue from Crispin Cole, stating to Alicent that what they must do next is terrible. And during this final line of dialogue, we get a very interesting look at a few upcoming scenes in Episode 5 as well. One of which being our very first look at Sir Amos Bracken, with a massive-looking Caraxes standing behind him, followed by another shot of Daemon in what appears to be the halls of Harrenhal. So overall, it looks like Episode 5 will most likely be dealing with the aftermath and the fallout of the Battle of Rooks Rest, while Daemon is out in Harrenhal renovating the castle and trying to turn other Riverlord houses to his cause. So I'm really looking forward to seeing how all of these events play out on screen. But that is going to do it for our Episode 5 preview breakdown for House of the Dragon Season 2. And if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like on your way out and consider subscribing to stay up to date on all of our upcoming content. And as always, I want to give a big thank you to everybody out there for watching, and we will see you on the next one.
Our terms are simple. Bend the knee to me, or your house burns.
The path I walk has never been trod.
What we must do now is terrible.